Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Gay with God podcast, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Or are we still searching? The stories you hear on this podcast will melt your heart and strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with the God of your understanding. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gay with God podcast. I am Midge Noble, your host and the author of Gay with God, Reclaiming My Faith, Honoring My Story. If you want a signed copy of that memoir, you can go to gaywithgod.com, and I will sign it for you and send it out. And you can also get it wherever you buy books. Gay with God, Reclaiming My Faith, Honoring My Story. So, of course, in a memoir, you have lots of memories. But today, on this particular day of the podcast, we are remembering the people and the animals who have served our country and died in service. Let me just wax my own little concerns that, it is fine for animals to be trained to do something, and it is fine for animals to serve us. And yet I'm always so sad on this day to think of the animals that might have been blown up by bombs, or, the animals that have served in ways that they were trained to do it by our desire for them to help us, and yet their life was lost, and I don't really know if they really chose that. Now, I know that all animals choose to serve us in any capacity, and they have nothing but love. But it's just one of my things that every time Memorial Day comes around, I always post a picture of a soldier with a dog, because I do know that so many dogs have served our service members and our country, whether they really chose it or not. And people who are drafted don't necessarily choose to do it. I'm a chicken, so I never would have chosen to go to war. And so, as we reflect on Memorial Day and people remembering the people that they love, I do honor all people who have died serving our country in whatever capacity that they served, because it's important that we keep our democracy, that we keep our way of life. It is important, and I do honor those people who are brave enough to serve. When I was thinking about that, I was also thinking about just memories that we hold from our past and things that continue to resurface from time to time. This particular morning, I was in a sibling chat with my sibs, and my mother is now 91. She'll be 92 in July if she chooses to stay that long. And she's not happy about being here. She's very conflicted at this point in time. And it's hard for us as siblings to hear her be so conflicted about staying here. She really wants to pass on and is quite angry. And I'm not divulging any secret. It doesn't matter if you're standing in the supermarket aisle or if you're at a doctor's office or at your church. She's going to tell you that she's mad at God because she's not gone yet. And she has, definitely drawn a line about what she expects God to do, and it's not happened, and so she's angry. So this is open knowledge to anyone who has talked to my mother in the last year. But she is very conflicted, and she's not happy about being here. And when I look back at the time that we spent as children growing up in our home, my mom always had a difficult time with her relationship with God. And she was quite vocal about that as well, that she didn't ever believe that we should have to make a choice, that we either follow God or we go to hell. Now, you and I, as we continue to work out our relationship with the God of our understanding, we do understand that the heaven and hell thing might have been overblown in our fundamentalists growing up, and that it may not really be the lake of fire for all eternity the way it was translated and stated in the Bible. The thing about the Bible altogether and the reinterpretations and the writing of it for everybody else's desire instead of what it would really originally was saying to us is a complication. We look back at the memories of how we were raised and what we were taught and the fear that was put in us, and it's quite striking that continues to be a problem for people at the end of their life. How many people get religion right before, they die in prison? How many people get religion when they get a tragic diagnosis? How many people get religion when something they want is so important to them and they're praying for it desperately because maybe they've never prayed before, but they're praying for this? And I'm not disparaging all of that. I'm just saying it's interesting that we can be completely void of concerns about religion until we're desperate. And there are a lot of people that are feeling really desperate right now. They're feeling desperate because they don't know what to hang on to. They used to hang on to tradition, and now a lot of traditions have gone by the wayside. I can remember, things that we used to do, and it was definitely an annual tradition. And now that didn't carry on into my life with my family because it was something that somebody else held on to, passed on to us. But traditions are breaking. Things are not the same as it used to be. And at the end of life, for anyone, it is that desperation of, did I get it right? Was this something that I was really supposed to believe in, or is this something that I never believed in but I need to believe in now? It's like throwing that very last coin into the wishing well and going, oh, last chance, yes, I believe. And I know we're all feeling desperate for lots of reasons. So memories in themselves can cause such conflict because we look back at the memories that we had growing up, and whether we believed in that tradition or what we were being taught, we're still having to live it. We're still having to figure out how to bring it forward if we want to. And that's why a lot of people are doing, the throwing out of all of their biblical beliefs and starting over. And I would really caution you, as I have before, about just throwing everything away, because even the lessons that we learned that we know now weren't true. They were still there for a reason. And what we learned, and maybe what pivoted us to finding a different way, was exactly what we needed to do. So if you were shamed into not being your authentic self because you were going to go to the lake of fire forever, eternity, and then you realize, oh, wait, that may not even be true, and therefore I'm not going to be condemned to the lake of fire for being gay, even if it is a sin, which it's not. Just so you remember, it is not a sin to be who God created you to be. And the Bible has been looked at and studied, and words have come up. In the 1946 movie, how did those two words get combined? And it was a mistake, and the person had said it was a mistake, but political things took over, and it was never changed in the Bible. And this whole entire time, the word that should have been perversion and abuse and all of those other things that were on the sexuality side, but not same-sex loving people, that stayed. And so the perversion became us when it was never meant to be us. If you'll remember, going back in our memory bank, Jesus never said a word about homosexuality. Not once. In the whole entire time of his ministry. And when he was really adamant about the things that he needed to tell us not to do or to do, it all boiled down to love yourself and love your neighbor. Love God, love yourself, love your neighbor. And I think it's important to remember that loving ourselves gives us the capacity to love our neighbor. If we don't love ourselves, then we're not extending as much love to our neighbor as we think we are. So if people would just remember that God did not ever expect the world to just be the 7 days of creation We are continuing to create. And you think God is still speaking. I do. I think God is still speaking. I think He's opening up a plethora of things for us to learn and to carry forward. Memories are great, and we may keep those traditions going all the way through, but how many of us have had to tweak things because it just isn't working for us anymore? And that's okay. That's called growth, and that's called expansion, and that's called life, really, because things can't stay the same. I grew up with 5 channels on our television, and the only ones that my daddy ever chose was sports and news. Every once in a while on Saturday morning when they slept in, we got cartoons. But it was black and white television, and it didn't always get great reception. And now look at where we are now. Everybody's streaming. There's all these channels. You can get 1,000 things on your television. I don't know how many of you watch all those things, but I still have my favorites, and I just kind of recycle them. I'm glad I have more than 5 channels, and I'm glad my television is not black and white, and I'm really happy with my smart TV and streaming. However, when I look back, those memories still give me, something to think about and to see how far we've come. Don't be afraid of remembering the bad things, because the bad things are really the lessons that brought you resilience, that brought you awareness, that put you in conflict with what someone else said you were and what you knew that you are. And that is amazing. If no one ever challenged anything, if no one ever held you to this belief that they had for you, that you felt the rub and you knew it wasn't right, and you remember all the conflict, and yet you broke out of it. That's a heroine and hero story right there, because you broke that mold that someone else had enslaved you with. And nobody has the right to tell us who we are. And even though they may interpret the Bible, the specific black and white, no way out of it kind of way, they're still not following it. You look at Leviticus, and you've heard this story all over the place, that, Leviticus also says we shouldn't be touching footballs because, that's the skin of an animal. And Leviticus teaches us that we're going to kill people for doing certain things in our family. And nobody follows that. But yet they want that one thing that was distorted by a mistake between 2 words, and they're going to hold us to that, but they don't hold themselves to anything else. They wear polyester, they do all the other things, but they want to hold that one covenant that got distorted. So free yourself, my friends, from that memory of all of the strict, stringent, unbelievably painful upbringing in the church. And remember, that is not Jesus' church. By the way, he spoke in a synagogue, not even a church. And as we've always said 1,000 million times, but I'll say it again, Jesus was not Christian. He might have been called the Christ, but he was not a Christian. He was the Son of God. He was Jewish. He was dark-skinned. And as far as we know, he never married. But that doesn't mean he didn't. And that doesn't mean anything other than we just don't know. Somebody said to me the other day, how can you go into a brewery with a Christian shirt on? What does that say to people? And I said, well, it says that I'm probably a spiritual person and I like beer. And they couldn't understand why I thought that would be okay. And my response is, Jesus turned the water into wine. And I can almost hear them say, because some people will not say this, but I can hear them in my mind saying, well, but that doesn't mean that Jesus drank it. He might have made it for the people at the wedding, but that doesn't mean he drank it. And I'm thinking, are you serious? He's Jewish. Of course he drank wine. And wine was a liquid that didn't have to be kept cold. And it was something that, a lot of Eastern people drank. And of course he probably drank the wine. But the Bible doesn't say he did. But the Bible also didn't say he didn't. So we don't know. All of the things in our memories are things that we think we know, but I'll tell you, if you ever talk to your siblings about the same event, you probably all have a different recollection. So our memories can be distorted at best, and we all remember it from our own lens and our own feelings at the time, and so it's really hard to say this is the way it was, because we don't know. Because even though we were there, and we all saw it happen, even like being a person that saw a crime, everybody has a different distorted view based on the fear, the excitement, the quickness of it, the startle of it. We all have different memories when we're trying to be an eyewitness for something because we're unreliable in a moment of fear and excitement. So memories serve us, but they should not dictate exactly where we wind up. Take them as lessons, go back and think them through, give yourself grace for what still bothers you, give yourself courage for what you want to move forward with, because it's all relevant. Everything you've been through was a stepping stone to get you to now. And now is either where you want to wind up, or if you're still living, it's probably not where you're going to wind up. Everything changes. And that's the hope that we have as we continue to remember all the chaos that is going on in the world today, that that's not the final answer. It will never be the final answer. And although I don't like war and I don't like, people dying and I don't like what's going on in the world today, I don't think this is the final answer, because we are still above ground and still breathing, and that means anything can happen. And in the blink of an eye, something could change in the administration, and it's all going to get better from there. And I believe that. I don't know how long it's going to continue to take, but I do believe if you look back at the history, things do not stay the same forever. There is always a rotating circle of life that continues to bring us, unfortunately, back to history, and then we move around. I would love for us to have a circle of life with an arrow in the middle of it so that we're going forward instead of continuing to repeat the same stupid things that we've done and experienced before. There would be no war if we all realized how we could negotiate or how we could do something different, but everybody decides that the end result is we've got to go to war, and we don't probably always have to go to war, but that's the way we've always solved problems. And until somebody tries something radically different, we probably are going to continue to follow that pattern. But there is a chance that people can lift their negotiation skills and their people skills up to a level where we don't have to go to war. I mean, Obama had the Iran deal that he negotiated, and we never had to go to war for the Hormuz passageway. I mean, there are ways to be a mature adult and negotiate things without losing face and without giving up everything you want, but to have some sort of understanding. And I really believe that at some point, all of this is going to have to break, and it's all going to have to go maybe to a darker place than we would like to see it, and then we will come back to the light, because that's where we always come back to. Until the last breath of the last person on earth, there is still a chance that things will always get better, because that's the way it's supposed to work. So on this Memorial Day, while we are thinking of those that we honor for their sacrifice, honor yourself also as you look back at your own memories from your childhood, from your enlightenment, from your stories of how you came to be who you are today. And give yourself a lot of credit. Give yourself the credit of strength and resilience and patience and hope and faith. All of those things are part of who you are if you've been through a past that was painful and shaming, because you have the warrior in you that did not give up. And you also sacrificed greatly. We all lost family and friends and our church that we may have grown up in. And yet we reclaimed new family, new friends, And some of us have reclaimed our spiritual walk in a church. And whether you did that or didn't, it is still available to you. It's a choice. It's not something you have to do. And yet, if it's something you wanted to do, it's available to you. We have more churches now that are truly open and affirming, not just in words, but they truly are open and affirming. And women are serving, and gay people are serving, and trans people are serving. And they know that God is the one that calls us, not someone's decision on who should be called, but it's if God calls us, that's all that matters. And so if you are looking at your past and having a tender moment and a sadness and a memory that you were going to do this in the church, or you were going to become that, if you're still above ground and still breathing, you're not done. And you can reclaim that memory and you can move forward in the direction that you're feeling called to go. I hope that you will find this uplifting and inspiring, because you are not done. And whatever memories are holding you back, whatever was painful, whatever you feared in the past, this is the time to start anew. And you can move forward today in whatever direction you're being called to go, and be the person that you always knew you could be. Be the person and do the thing that you always had on your heart to do, because your life is not over, and you still have the power of choice and inspired thought. And I welcome you on that side of your memories, that you can become and be and do whatever God has called you for. Thank you, everybody, for honoring me with your time today. I want to thank you for listening, for sharing, supporting, and subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to see more information and links to connect with me, go to the Gay with God show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. Check out our Facebook group, Gay with God, where we do a monthly Zoom group entitled My Faith Journey. You need to make sure that you answer all the questions so that I can make sure that everyone else in the group is safe. So answer all the questions so that I can invite you inside. And as a side note, tonight's group that we would be having is canceled for tonight, and we will rejoin each other next month on the fourth Monday. And so no Gay with God group tonight, but we will meet next month. Also, if you are needing support with your coming out or faith journey, or feeling resilient or not, you can also find a link at empoweredmidge.podbean.com to connect with me for a free and confidential session and see if coaching is right for you. If you are listening to this podcast and are questioning whether you can be gay and be in relationship with the God of your understanding, if you identify as LGBTQIA+, are not even sure if you are gay, God has always been within you. Even when you didn't know it, you have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always, you are loved. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.